The courtroom was silent as the little girl stood in front of the judge, holding a worn-out photograph of her father in her tiny hands. Her voice shook, but her eyes carried a strength nobody expected from a child her age. She looked at the injured man sitting in the wheelchair and whispered, "Free my daddy, and I'll make you walk again." For a moment, nobody moved. Then the entire courtroom burst into laughter. The lawyers smiled. The people in the back rows whispered. Even the judge looked surprised by the impossible promise coming from a little girl who was barely tall enough to reach the courtroom table. But the girl did not cry. She simply hugged the old photograph closer to her chest, because she knew something the world had forgotten. Sometimes the smallest hearts carry the biggest miracles. Before we begin this emotional journey, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of a good heart, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel Heart Kindness Tales. The little girl's name was Amara Voss, and she was only 9 years old. She was not from a wealthy family, she did not have expensive clothes, and she had never stepped inside a courtroom before that day. Her small blue dress was carefully washed but faded from years of use. Her brown hair was tied into 2 simple braids, and her shoes were slightly damaged from walking long distances every day. But Amara carried something more valuable than money. She carried love. Her father, Kellen Voss, was the only person in the world who had ever made her feel safe. After her mother passed away when Amara was very young, Kellen became both her parent and her best friend. He worked every job he could find, waking up before sunrise and returning home late at night just to make sure his daughter had food on the table and a warm blanket during cold nights. He always told her, "Amara, life may knock us down, but kindness will always help us stand again." Those words stayed inside her heart. But everything changed one rainy evening. Kellen was driving home after finishing a late shift at a construction site when a speeding car lost control and crashed into him. The accident left another man severely injured and changed both families forever. The man in the other vehicle was a successful businessman named Rowan Hale. He survived the crash, but the injuries to his spine left him unable to walk. The evidence at first seemed clear. Kellen was blamed. Witnesses said his vehicle crossed the line. The police report pointed toward his mistake. The court decided that Kellen was responsible for Rowan's condition. But Amara knew her father. She knew the man who would stop his own car to help a stranger. She knew the man who gave away his lunch to a hungry person outside their apartment. She knew the man who cried quietly when he thought nobody was watching because he missed his wife. Her father was not careless. He was not cruel. And he was not guilty. But nobody wanted to listen to a 9-year-old girl. For months, Amara visited her father in jail. Each visit broke her heart a little more. She would sit across the glass wall, placing her tiny hand against it while her father did the same from the other side. Kellen always tried to smile. He always told her everything would be okay. But Amara could see the pain in his eyes. One afternoon, after another failed appeal, Amara asked him why everyone believed he was guilty. Kellen looked down and said, "Sometimes people believe what they see before they believe what is true." That night, Amara made a promise. She would find the truth. Days turned into weeks. She studied every piece of information she could find. She listened carefully whenever adults talked. She remembered small details that others ignored. And then she discovered something strange. The accident report said the crash happened at exactly 7:40 in the evening. But Amara remembered something her father had told her. He always called her before leaving work. Every single night. She found an old message on an old phone that showed the last call from her father happened at 7:32. That meant something was wrong. If the accident happened 8 minutes later, why did the road camera report show a different timeline? Amara started asking questions. People laughed. They told her she was just a child. But she continued. She visited the mechanic who had checked the vehicles. She searched through old papers. She found a missing inspection record that had never been included in court. The more she looked, the more she realized the accident was not as simple as everyone believed. The car that hit her father's vehicle had a brake problem. A problem that had been reported before. A problem that someone ignored. The shocking discovery was that Rowan Hale's own company had delayed repairs to save money. But proving it would be almost impossible. Amara needed help. That was when she decided to go back to the courtroom. She stood there in front of everyone, asking for one more chance to speak. The judge hesitated, but something about the girl's determination made him allow it. And that was when she made the promise that everyone laughed at. "Free my daddy, and I'll make you walk again." Everyone thought she was being childish. But Amara turned toward Rowan Hale. The man in the wheelchair looked at her with confusion. She walked closer and said softly, "You think my daddy took your legs away, but he didn't. Someone else did. Someone who cared more about money than people." The courtroom became quiet. For the first time, Rowan truly listened. Amara showed the hidden evidence. She explained the timeline. She described the missing reports and the ignored warnings. At first, nobody believed her. Then the court ordered a new investigation. Days later, the truth came out. The accident was not caused by Kellen. The brakes in Rowan's car had failed because the required repairs were never completed. The company responsible had hidden the information to avoid responsibility. Kellen Voss was innocent. The courtroom that once laughed became silent. The judge apologized. The people who doubted Amara looked at her differently. But the person most affected was Rowan Hale. For the first time in months, he realized the pain he carried had turned into anger toward the wrong person. He looked at Amara and felt ashamed. He had believed a stranger was his enemy without knowing the truth. After Kellen was released, he ran toward his daughter and held her tightly. He cried. Not because of the pain he had suffered, but because his little girl had never stopped believing in him. "You saved me," he whispered. Amara shook her head. "No, Daddy. You taught me how to save people." The story could have ended there. But Amara remembered something else. Her promise. She had told Rowan she would make him walk again. Everyone assumed she meant it as a child's impossible dream. But Amara had noticed something during the investigation. Rowan's condition was not completely hopeless. His doctors had stopped trying because they believed recovery was unlikely. But Amara found a rehabilitation specialist who worked with patients others had given up on. Rowan agreed to try. The journey was not easy. There were painful exercises. There were difficult days. There were moments when Rowan wanted to quit. But every time he felt defeated, he remembered the little girl who stood in a courtroom full of people who laughed at her. Months passed. Slowly, something incredible happened. Rowan moved his foot. Then his leg. Then, one morning, with tears in his eyes, he stood. Not perfectly. Not without support. But he stood. The first person he called was Amara. When she arrived, Rowan took a few careful steps toward her. The girl who made a promise no one believed watched the man everyone thought would never walk again take those steps. The room filled with tears. Years later, people still talked about that courtroom. They talked about the little girl who proved that courage does not depend on age. Amara grew up and became someone who helped people who had no voice. She never forgot the lesson her father taught her. A single act of kindness can change a life. A single person's belief can create a miracle. And sometimes, the person everyone underestimates becomes the person who inspires the world. Before the story ends, I want to ask you something special. Please comment, "Kindness creates miracles," if this story touched your heart and if you believe one good heart can change another person's life. If this story moved you, please support this video by liking, sharing, and subscribing to Heart Kindness Tales. Your support helps these emotional stories reach more people who need a little hope. Because sometimes, all someone needs is one person who believes in them.